Question: what are your go-to book recommendations? I actually legitimately want to know because I'm building my 2026 TBR, so please comment down below. Oh my god, please, if you're feeling open, I would appreciate it. I keep seeing Jack Edwards do this thing where he's interviewing celebrities as he does, and he asks them, what's on your required reading list? Jacob Elordi mentioned a book I was not familiar with at all. It's called Weak in Comparison to Dreams, and just by the title alone, I feel like I need to read it, but I also feel like I need to read Jacob Elordi as a book as well. Oh my god. God, I'm just so excited for Euphoria. Oscar Isaac said that he would have Crime and Punishment as a book. Solid choice, solid. Gillian Anderson said Land in Winter by Andrew Miller. Never heard of. Am gonna give a try. And then Jennifer Lawrence said Anna Karenina. Try to spell that without looking. I can't. So I wanted to make a video and share my go-to book recommendations. Although go-to would kind of imply that it is palatable for everyone, I'm just gonna preface this and say they are not for everyone. 2 of them are super not for everyone. With this recommendation comes 3 prompts as to what I believe you would like to know for a book recommendation. First one, why you should read this book, kind of based off of the value that I took from it. Second, why you would not like to read this book so that we can be fair. And then third, who I think the audience is for this book. Although I would like to say like everyone for all the books I enjoy, sometimes like books have specific audiences.
Hold on a second. If you could, I would so appreciate if you could give this video a like or comment your favorite book rec. I'm just trying to appeal to the YouTube gods so that they can look at me favorably. I would appreciate it, and I appreciate you.
Also, if you could please, if you hear my neighbors upstairs, please just ignore them. When it comes to why people recommend books, they're gonna recommend books that are within their taste. And what is in my taste are books that are thrilling, books that have social commentary, introspection, grief, and humor. I was gonna say a little bit of humor, but I like to laugh a lot in books. The first book that I'm gonna recommend has all of these components. I don't dislike a book if it doesn't have all the components, but this is the book that shaped my taste. It is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This book is not for everyone, okay? But I'm gonna tell you why it could be for you. This is a retelling of David Copperfield from Barbara Kingsolver's perspective. This is about a boy. His name isn't actually Demon, it's Damon, but where he grew up, everybody goes by their nicknames. This is the story of him growing up in the Appalachian Mountains to the most unfavorable circumstances. The circumstances really shape his resilience and then also give him a certain like charm and wit about him that leave you really rooting for him. Why you should read this book. If you like grief and humor, you're never gonna read a book that's gonna make you laugh as much as you're gonna cry. If you like classic literature or just literature in general, it's really easy to be moved by a writer who can write well. Like, it's really easy to be inspired, to find a story that is incredibly impactful, that has elements of social commentary. It is more difficult to do that and to have humor and introspection done well, in my opinion. This is a good balance that's kind of hard to convey of being entertained, but then also unlocking critical thinking that social commentary gives. It just made me think, and it endeared me, and it made me laugh, and it made me cry. That's why you should read this book if you were looking for all of those elements. Why you shouldn't read this book? Do not read this book if you are simply an escapist. It is your prerogative to be an escapist reader, but this book is not meant for the people that just want to sit down, read a book, and like take themselves out of the real world. Like, this is really sad. This is really sad, and the minute that you get some hope, it's gonna shatter you, and it's not like going to make you feel better about life. It's gonna like be kind of grim. Who the heck is the audience for this book? I think if you are interested in themes of grief and you understand that most things, if not everything, is political, like if you are comfortable with feeling that sentiment, this book is for you, especially if you have an interest in socioeconomics. I think that really, really plays a role. Also, if you want to laugh in the process, this could be for you. I highly recommend.
Okay, next book. They Have Called Us Exceptional and Other Lies That Raised Us by Prachi Gupta. This is a memoir by Prachi Gupta that is not only a telling of her experience of what it means to be a representative of the quote-unquote model minority, but it's also an informative book that is deeply rooted in the understanding that combats the idea of exceptionalism as a minority and why that is more harmful than rewarding. Prachi Gupta's writing, I think, is very similar to that of, like, if you've ever read John Green, anything nonfiction by John Green, like Everything is Tuberculosis, had his own experience in what he saw of tuberculosis, but then also was incredibly informative with statistics and cited its sources properly. This book does the same exact thing. Prachi is speaking from her childhood into adulthood about her life as an exceptional person, as somebody who was incredibly smart, but then also as somebody who sees the pressure of the model minority myth and not only speaks on it and critiques it in a way that, you know, you would expect, but backs it up, really backs it up with the reasons that it is harmful on your mental, emotional, physical health. And then also just harmful systematically. I think you should read this book just if you would like to be educated and gain some perspective, truly. I want to read an excerpt from the prologue because I really don't feel like I can do it justice without simply just citing the book. Like I said, this is the prologue, and I was just on the floor with it. Early in US and Canadian history, Asian immigrants were not allowed entry. In 1882, America enacted the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first significant race-based immigration ban, and it later extended to all of Asia. Then Canada passed a similar set of laws. Both countries were focused on white supremacy till the Cold War, when America wanted to be branded a liberal democracy, aka the melting pot. So then the Hart-Celler Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 established a new system of selection that favored immigrants with professional skills, high education levels, and strong family ties. And then Canada followed suit. That lays the ground to understanding where the whole model minority myth came from, because if you were a minority seeking citizenship, because you had to have high education levels, professional skills, and strong family ties. That has then led into America honestly viewing immigrants as acceptable if they are exceptional. Unfortunately, there are zero reasons to not read this book. Who is the audience for this? The audience, honestly, I think should be everyone, but if I'm gonna be real, the audience is going to be people that are open-minded and curious. There are a lot of people who are not open-minded and curious enough for this, but this has to be to the people that do believe in the model minority myth and that do believe in setting constraints for people who are not their version of success. If you're gonna read any of them, then I recommend this one is it. Like it is. This next book is called Idlewild. Idlewild, I just recently got this from my little library book hunt. This is the book that I ended off with. This is a coming of age story focused on two people, Faye and Nell. Nell is a lesbian. Faye is perceived to be queer, but is just obsessed with queer culture in a way that is really interesting and confusing when you're reading the book, and it takes pretty much the whole book to understand why she is obsessed with queer culture. So, Nell and Faye are kind of codependent. One of the strongest points of this book is that familiar feeling of when you're in high school, figuring out, are my friends lifelong? Like, are they meant to be in my life forever because I've learned so much about myself through them? Or are they just people who I enjoy because we have proximity to each other? You should read this book for that sentiment of what I just said. Like, this is a very vivid portrait of what it is to be a high schooler, although the setting is in post 9/11. Actually, it starts off being pre 9/11, going through 9/11, and then post 9/11. It has lots of social commentary. The people who should not read this are people, honestly, who are not sexually liberated, because there are like direct mentions of in this. There are direct mentions of that. One of the characters finds their sexual identity through looking at and talking about it. I really feel like if you are weirded out by anything that is taboo sexually, this is not for you. This book really captivated me, and I found it very interesting, very quirky, but I also just recognize like this is, although I'm strongly recommending this, I'm also recommending it because like I selfishly want to see what other people are saying, and I want to be in like Socratic seminars based on these like based on what was written in this book. You know what I mean? Like I miss discussion about things like this, where as somebody who grew up being told that being queer was a sin, being queer is a lifestyle, knowing that I have so many things to unlearn, I'm happy that I run into things like this. If you are somebody that believes that being queer is a sin, this is not for you. And actually, this channel I don't think is for you. This channel is not for you, I don't think. Who is the audience? Okay. This audience, honestly, is for the sexually liberated queer theater adults. This is what it is, because there's a lot of talk about theater, and these people are theater people in the book. And there are so many things that I think are going to be comforting to that specific audience. I am not the specific audience, but I enjoyed like a peek into the curtain. Okay, next book. What White Parents Should Know About Transracial Adoption, An Adoptee's Perspective on Its History, Nuances, and Practices by Melissa Gita Richards. This book is the most personal to me, the one that I relate to heaviest, as I am a transracial adoptee. What the heck is a transracial adoptee? A transracial adoptee is just anyone who was adopted outside of a race that is not their own. That's basically what it is. This story is told from the perspective of Melissa, who for 19 years, it was hidden from her that she was adopted from Colombia. And so this is kind of like her unveiling what happened and how she found out, and coming to terms with not only being an adoptee, but being transracial when she did not think that she was. And it's very interesting because as somebody who was like clearly adopted, there was no hiding it. My parents could not have hid that from me, especially because I grew up in the country that I was adopted in. I think it's very fascinating that this is probably more common than we think it is, for real. Adopted parents not sharing with their adoptees that they're adopted. This book covers a lot of topics that I feel like should be mandatory for all adoptive parents that are seeking adoption. I mean, specifically if you're transracial, but even if you're not transracial, there's so many things that are covered that are not just only focused on adopting a child outside of your race, which is important. It even battles the idea of like something that people might even be feeling as they're listening to me. Why does race matter? Love is love. It does. Why you should read this book, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but personally I feel like you should read this book because of a statistic I found out when I was doing a paper on adoptees and the mental health effects of adoption, which is that 1/4 of adoptees attempt suicide. 1/4 of us. Adoption is a really common practice, but the history about it and the mental health effects are not known. They're not talked about it, and I think that it's crucial, but it's incredibly overlooked because it makes people uncomfortable. The idea that adoption is the filler for a child, getting a home is ultimately good, but it ignores the fact that adoption is rooted in trauma and that 1/4 of us are killing ourselves. So books like this really are important because they give adoptees information, and information is power. Like, I don't want to cry, but I just feel this is so close to me, that if you're interested at all, it was great. The chapters in this book I think are incredibly important. I made notes on what they are. So the basics of adoption, I don't think that a lot of people know all of the different ways adoptions can work. There's open adoption, closed adoption, interfamily adoption, and things like that. There's a chapter on identity, which was very interesting to hear from Melissa herself, because she grew up from not knowing to knowing from her perspective. I think is really interesting because she's maturing and growing up with being acclimated to this idea, as opposed to me, my own whole entire life. My experience shapes my relationship to adoption, but her lack of it very interesting. Another chapter is trauma in adoption, and then mental health and therapy. Why you shouldn't read this book? You should read this book. There are reasons why a person would not want to read this book, but I think this is necessary. The audience, however, is for white parents who are adopting transracially. Although, I read this primarily for a paper. It was 20 pages. And I've read multiple books, okay? A bunch of books on adoption, specifically transracial. There isn't a book that I feel like is better than this one, especially because it came out, I feel like this came out in 2021, and the books that I was reading previous, I think, had some outdated information. This, I feel like, is the most up to date and can click with adoptees and parents. If you are open to reading it, please check it out. I highly recommend. It's very fascinating, even if you're not an adoptee, if you're just like a person that's curious about the tea as like what the heck happened with her family after she found out she was adopted. What? Please give me a book recommendation. Like I said, I am building my 2026 TBR, although I am just, of course, adding on my 2025. But I am always open to seeing book recommendations, and I legitimately do go through and add them to my TBR. I appreciate you, wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time of day it is. I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, or night.